Assalamu alaikum, my dear students and all kinds of viewers. I would like to warmly welcome you to my virtual lecture presentation. As usual, this is my first lecture actually on history of English literature, basically made for honored second year students. And I hope you will enjoy the lecture till I go to the last slide of my presentation. So I'm going to welcome you from my home, and this has been a very important lecture because the topic that I will be talking about a very important part of your syllabus. So let's see, and let's go to the next slide. Yes, history of English literature, Elizabethan age, which is actually called the golden age of English literature. And the name that always comes to our mind when we call about Elizabethan age, that is Queen Elizabeth, whom she reigned from 1558 to 1603. And this is a very important and vital part of the whole gamut of English literature because it has influences other ages, coming other ages, that is, Romantic period, Victorian period, Restoration, and of course it has its biggest impact on modern period as well. So from that point of view and perspective, it's actually a very important time of English literature. So let's get started. Well, before I go to the main part of my discussion, can you see some important pictures or images in this slide? Hope you have seen those before. These are the very important and salient, moment of Elizabethan period. You can see the picture of Queen Elizabeth. Another picture you can see the William Shakespeare with Queen Elizabeth at her own reign, at her own, power, when she has actually set into her own throne. She was got the supreme power of the authority of the whole England of that time. So another picture you can see some people are actually carrying Queen Elizabeth to the throne. The coronation ceremony, before the crowning ceremony. The crowning ceremony has been a very important, milestone in the history of English literature. Okay, the middle picture, bottom middle picture, you can see the Globe Theatre, which was very much important at that time because Shakespeare used to have his own place at that Globe Theatre, and the right side again the picture of Queen Elizabeth. So these are some of the pictures to make you understand what I'm going to talk about or what is the topic about. All these images clearly indicate that we are going to talk about a very important period in the history of English literature, that is Elizabethan period. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, let us have a look at the key features of the Elizabethan age. Elizabethan age is a very comprehensive and powerful age in the monarch and in terms of monarchy or in terms of power, in terms of prosperity. It's a very important age. So let us have a look at the key features of the Elizabethan age. It is usually called the golden age in English history. Queen Elizabeth I reigned 1558 and she reigned until 1603. That is why this age is this is the lifespan, or this is the time of total lifespan of this Elizabethan period, 1558 to 1603. Production of great poetry and drama occurred in this age. It is also called the age of Shakespeare. Feeling of patriotism and nationalism that we find in this age, and it is also called the most glorious age in the history of England. So these are the key features. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is a very important picture of this age from this Whaley Geek. It's called Whaley Geek, or a kind of prototype where you can see how and what actually happened in the Elizabethan age, how social and political background led to the cultural background of the age. If you look at the picture very closely, you can see at the top a small miniature social background. When the social background moves upward, it moves again it leads and moves to the political background of the age. And the political background, the rotation would be downwards. And when the political background rotates downwards, it actually rotates the cultural background, which is shown at the biggest image, biggest circle, and it moves clockwise downwards. So it is very clear from this picture that social background and political background, how does it influence the cultural background of the age and the literary period of that time. It's very important from this picture, we can see that. Let's go to the next part of our presentation. The Renaissance, the name that usually comes to our mind when we talk about Elizabethan period, the name that always peeps into our mind is the Renaissance. Actually, it's a vast area of discussion because Renaissance actually started in the 14th century in England or in UK. So I would like to talk about it another day. I would only give some lights and I would like to shed some light of the Renaissance in making the Elizabethan age. So let's have a look at that. Renaissance had its birth in Italy and it was towards the end of 14th century. It spread in Germany in the 15th and 16th century. Then it flourished in Spain, France, Netherlands, and England. That is the total Europe. It has spread throughout the total Europe. And the age produced literary luminaries like Shakespeare, Marlowe, Spencer, and Sidney. And there is a very famous quotation of this time that man started to think for themselves, started questioning accepted beliefs. That was the main motto of that time because people have started thinking freely and individually without any kind of burden or without any kind of pressure. That was the main spirit of the age. So from this quotation, we find the main spirit of this age of Renaissance and also its greater and powerful impact upon Elizabethan age. Well, there are some salient features or characteristics of the Elizabethan age. Now let's have a look at them one by one. Humanism is the first one. Reformation, nationalism, an age of material advancement, new discoveries, printing and education, revival of interest in Greek and Latin literature. So these are the most important features that took place in Elizabethan age. Actually, each and every point is equally very, very important, and it is not possible to describe each and every point because it will take a huge amount of time. So I have just shown you the most important features that actually took place and that were responsible for, making Elizabethan age a golden age in English literature. So let's go to the next slide of presentation. Okay. What actually happened in the Elizabethan age? The development of drama. Elizabethan age is basically called the age of plays or age of drama. And in 1566, James Burbage built first playhouse, which is very much prominent event at that time. It was called the theatre. They called the theatre in suburb of London. That is, theatre started to be erected at the suburban areas of London. University wits emerged. The group consisted of 7: John Lilly, Thomas Keat, Thomas Nash, Thomas Lodge, George Peele, Robert Greene, and the greatest of them was Christopher Marlowe. He was the champion of the university wits. The drama reached at its heights in the hands of Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. Jacobian period declined, and the standards of drama also went at the fag end or on the verge of the completion of this age. Drama started to wane itself. Popularity of poetry. Poetry became very popular at that time, and there were a lot of reasons behind this. So let us have a look at them. The development of poetry is the strongest characteristic of this age. Atmosphere of England was lyrical and full of songs. England became the nest of singing birds. The chief norms of poetry were lyric, sonnet, narrative poetry. All these things dominated at that time. That is poetry and drama. The important thing I would like to inform you, dear students, that the poetry actually influenced drama, and the drama were written in the narrative poetry, or it can be called epic poetry or something like that. I mean, even the drama were written in the form of poetry. That is why poetry dominated immensely at that time. Okay, the prose and novel. Uh, it was not a very good time for the emergence of prose novel. But in spite of all this, there were some prose novels, that took place, or there are some prose novels published or written. So the development of prose was not very great. It was very slow in comparison to the steady progress of poetry. If you compare it to the poetry, the prose was very slow. Bacon is the father of modern English prose. Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia and New Atlantic of Bacon become very popular at that time. English novel made its first proper appearance during this age. So English novel just started to flourish or peep through this age, but it was not a very good time, as I already mentioned, for novel and prose. Okay, so this is I have tried to give you a description, a holistic description of the Elizabethan age, what actually happened. You can see it from these slides in a nutshell. Okay, Elizabethan theatre, body of works written during the reign of Elizabeth I of England, probably the most splendid age in the history of English literature, during which such writers as Sir Philip Sidney, Edmund Spenser, Roger Ascham, Richard Hooker, Christopher Marlowe, and William Shakespeare flourished. The epithet Elizabethan is merely a chronological reference and doesn't describe any special characteristic of the writing. The Elizabethan age saw the flowering of poetry, the sonnet, the Spenserian stanza, dramatic blank verse, was a golden age of drama, especially for the plays of Shakespeare, and inspired a wide variety of splendid prose, from historical chronicles, versions of Holy Scriptures, pamphlets, and literary criticism to the English novels. From about the beginning of the 17th century, a sudden darkening of tone became noticeable in most forms of literary expression, especially in drama, and the change more or less coincided with the death of Elizabeth. English literature from 1603 to 1625 is properly called Jacobian, after the new monarch, James I. But insofar as the 16th century themes and patterns were carried over into the 17th century, the writings from the earlier part of his reign, at least, is sometimes referred to by the amalgam Jacobian. That is both the term, I mean Jacobian and Elizabethan, these two terms have been flourished and these two terms have been amalgamated, blended together, and this phrase has been made, that is Jacobian. Okay, so this is a very brief description of the main event of Elizabethan period and its impact upon the literary gamut of English history. Dear students, I would like to give you some questions, because if you look at these questions, you will get a proper idea what I have already discussed. If you have enjoyed it, I think you can go through the study questions now. So let's look at the first question. Elizabethan age is famous for the growth of English drama, and Shakespeare deserves much of its prestige. Do you agree? Elucidate. Or write down the contribution of the Elizabethan dramatists of the age to this age. Or discuss about the Elizabethan age, mainly giving an account of the Elizabethan dramatists. Or write an essay on Elizabethan drama. Number 2, what are the characteristic features of poetry, of English poetry of the 16th and 17th century? So these are the only 2 questions from which you will get adequate ideas about the topic that I have just talked about. And if you go through this, if you go on solving or finding out the solution of these questions, I hope you will be largely benefited, dear students. So please try to find out the answer of these 2 questions to cover the whole Elizabethan age. And in my next lecture, I would like to give you more ideas on Renaissance and its impacts upon the history of English literature. So you have enjoyed it much. And with this, I would like to conclude today's session. Thanks for the time you have been with me. Hope you have enjoyed and made a good use of it. My link is also given, YouTube link. You can subscribe, Mazhar Hawk. There you can upload and see more lectures. I mean, you can download the lectures, or you can watch the lectures at your own way. My blog ID is also given, hawkeye.blogspot.com. So it's time for me to say goodbye, and I hope you will enjoy more in the future. Thank you very much. See you again in the next time.